exciting it is. And like Jane said, it allows us to expose the trail on a much broader scope. So please join us. If you're interested in research, genealogy, whatever, come talk to us. We would love that. Yeah, join our team, okay? Thank you. Thanks.
Do we have a couple of free seats up here? If somebody wants to move closer, one. Oh, Mary's. What about behind you there? Next to you, Peggy? Is anybody next to you?
It's $1. It's not free.
Well, you'd have to sit beside a Frank, but yeah. So there's a seat right up there. Yeah, Roxy, come on up. Roxy's got a new book coming out. When's your book coming out, Roxy?
I will have it here in the museum either next week or week. What day are we meeting?
We're 20th. I can't remember. But anyway,
21st.
21st.
So what is the title of your new book, Roxy?
Well, I can't resist.
No, come on. We can do commercials.
I just wrote a secret book. It really does have a hook. And you need to come here to buy it. It goes like this: a fourth, a fifth, the minor chord, a major lift. The wonderful book, rejoice, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. You know, I can never resist a microphone.
What's the name of the book? Secret Kansas.
And Sheridan is in it.
Woohoo! Yay! Maybe my books would sell better if I could sing. You know, that's. Wait, doggone it. You just can't have all the talent, can you? So this next presenter, we're just so thrilled that Dee could come up and be with us. He is an Oklahoman. We got just all this Okie infiltration today, don't we? So how many of you've read Killers of the Flower Moon? If you look in the acknowledgments, Dee's name is in that. So if you get time, I don't think he's going to talk about that story today, but if you get time, ask him about it, because that's a pretty cool story too. He is a retired special agent with the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. So yeah, again, he can't arrest anybody, and we are infiltrated with law dogs too. We got if you are now or ever have been a sheriff or a policeman or whatever, raise your hand. How many we got in here? Look at all this. Yeah, it's woo. Yeah. That's why we don't drink at these meetings. But Dee is a terrific researcher and a wonderful writer, and his commitment to the research that he has done with the Cheyenne peoples and specific families and individuals is just incredible, and we're just so blessed to have Dee with us. So please make welcome Dee Cordry.
Roxy, I'm not going to try to sing. I can't compete with your book introduction. But if your services are available, I might want to visit with you. I might want to do a music video. So what I want to talk about today is has connections to Kansas, but it also has geographical locations to Oklahoma and Florida. And this event that I'm talking about, we refer to as the Sand Hill Fight. And it occurred in 1875 down here near El Reno, Oklahoma, at what was the Cheyenne Arapaho Agency headquarters at Darlington, Indian Territory. There we go. Oh, okay. So this territory that we're going to be talking about is in northwest Oklahoma, and this is a survey map that shows the location of Darlington Cheyenne Arapaho Indian Agency. And it's along the North Canadian River. Now, today, where Darlington was located is right here. And this is the current course of the North Canadian River. And here's US Highway 81, and this is the headquarters for the Southern Cheyenne Arapaho. So we're looking at a distance. Actually, from here, you can see the water towers and so on. This is up on a hill. Zoom in just a little bit, and you'll start to notice this right here. And what this represents is the old river channel during that time period. And so what I've marked here with this dotted red line, if you drive out there today, which you can drive right up here, there's a drop-off right here. And now the river's over here. But back then, this was the path of the river. And so here is a map that was drawn the day afterwards by the Army. And, oh, there. And so you can see this curve. And that and other details lead me to believe that this is the correct location right here. And there's a sand hill that was right in the middle, and this is where the battle occurred. What's so interesting to me about this story is there's really interesting people involved. Some of them I'm sure you've heard of. The German sisters, the German family, killed not far from here. These Cheyenne Arapaho men, women, and children, which included Cheyenne Belle Valenti, who was a granddaughter of White Thunder. And so I came across her story in researching my book, Children of White Thunder. And this, well, man, I just not paying attention here. This guy, Robert Burns, married Ada Bent, a great-granddaughter of White Thunder. So there's descendants of White Thunder here at the time of this battle being shot at. And of course, you have the agency officials, these victims, the German sisters, and the U.S. Army, all together in this one spot at the same time. And so, to me, this is a very important junction where you have certain things that happened just before, and you have things that happened during the event, and then you have significant things that happened just afterwards. Now, and one of those significant events involved the Red River Wars, and then the Cheyennes were forced to come into their reservation and surrender. And when they did that, part of that was the 2 German girls that were brought in. And when they were brought in, they were disarmed and their ponies were confiscated. And I found a reference describing them as poverty-stricken and that they were placed in a prison camp, which was new information to me. I thought I was real familiar with this story, but I just keep finding more and more stuff. The German sisters identify some of their attackers. They brought these men out, these Cheyenne men, and one woman, and she pointed them out. They had prepared a list of warriors that they were going to seize as war criminals. And so they started doing that on about April the 4th. And then on April the 6th is when this battle breaks out. And we'll go into details about that. And if nothing else, a thing to remember about all of this is there were killed and wounded on both sides. And then at the end of the day, in the darkness, the Cheyenne men, women, and children escaped and fled upriver. The army thought they had this hill surrounded, but they didn't, or their sentries were not good enough. And then afterwards, now here's the deal. Part of those men, women, and children fled north, and they came up here, and they crossed just east of here and stopped at Sapa Creek to rest their horses. They were going to hunt some buffalo and take a day or two and then keep moving north. Well, the army was in pursuit of them, and the army found them. One of the men who was involved in first locating them was from Fort Wallace, named Homer Wheeler. So they attacked them. The army attacked these men, women, and children at what is also known as Cheyenne Hole. They attacked them and killed almost all of them. There were 2 or 3 maybe that got away. Back at Darlington, the remaining warriors, prisoners of war that they had seized, they shipped them off to a military prison in Florida, Fort Marion, and they were incarcerated there for 3 years. And during that time period, there were Cheyennes that died there during that incarceration. So I think that this represents this very unique junction of these events that are interrelated. So during this process, when they were identifying these warriors that they were going to send off as prisoners of war, the military commander there at Darlington was Lieutenant Colonel Neal. And he had begun the process of taking these warriors that he decided were guilty of war crimes. And initially, he made that decision. He was choosing people who were being held in a prison camp. And on the 12th, March the 12th, these two German sisters look at these Cheyenne men who are paraded in front of them, and they identify specific people such as Moki, the Cheyenne woman, the wife of Medicine Water. So they took all of these guys to a guardhouse. And this was kind of new information to me. I didn't realize there was an actual structure that was a guardhouse. But that's where they were keeping these 33 or 32 men and one woman. And this is where I actually found this, where it talks about a prison camp. And it says, a more wretched and poverty-stricken community than these people presented after they were placed in the prison camp, it would be difficult to imagine. And it goes on. And so they place these guys in the guardhouse. Well, some of these, well, all of them were noteworthy, but some of them are very well known and included Okerhater, who became known as David Pendleton Okerhater, and he was also an artist and is known for ledger art, very well known. Medicine Water and his wife, who were with the band that attacked the German family. This guy, Squint Eyes, is another artist, Henry C. Romanos. And three of his descendants, Melvin, Quentin, and Larry Romanos, had hoped to be here today, but for unforeseen problems, that didn't work out. So, very significant Cheyenne warriors in Cheyenne history are here, and they've been taken prisoner by the army. Now, there's a controversy over this selection process, and they had a list that had already been put together, and it had specific names on it, but I can't tell you what names were on his list. But we know the details of the 33 people that arrived in Florida. And so I can't say for certain that that's exactly the same people that were on this list that Neil was working from. And helping him, because, you know, he has this, all of the men are lined up here, and they're trying to figure out exactly which ones are the people on this list. And so he had assistance from these two scouts and interpreters to try to figure this out. Now, Neil has been accused of being drunk at the time that this occurred, and that they had completed choosing 15 or identifying 15 of them, and then Neil decides, this is enough, just take the remaining 18 from the end of the line. And then they had 33. And these 18 people had may or may not have committed any crimes. There's a government official from the Department of Interior that actually wrote that the 18 struck off in innocent parties that were being held as prisoners. So it's kind of controversial. It needs a lot more study. And this is Neil's report about this incident. And I have some Xerox copies of it, and I also can, if you have a thumb drive you'd like me to copy it to, or I can email it to you, I will make all of this available so you can, because I'm not going to go through every sentence in this. But he talks about and reports about this, how how this battle occurred. And his report is the one that includes this map. And he starts off describing he was shot. Well, the guy he's talking about is Black Horse, one of the warriors. And while they were in the process of chaining these guys with a ball and chain, Black Horse breaks free and takes off running. And he's running into the direction of the Cheyenne camp. And they shoot at him because he's escaping. And so Neil says he was shot. The women and children were not fired at. And then in response to the military opening fire, upon this fire from rifles and with arrows from the hostile camps. Well, this is going to come up here in a little bit with some contradictions to what Neil is saying here. And he describes there being 100 to 150 of these warriors, and that they have taken up position on an isolated, elevated sand hill about 700 yards from the military camp where they had been holding these guys in their guardhouse. And this is that same map, and I've gone in here and identified this is the Cheyenne camp, and this was Captain Bennett's military camp. And this square drawn on here, it's not labeled. I think it might be the guardhouse. Can't say for sure. This is the North Canadian River, and they've marked a place on here as a ford across the river. And this is the Cheyenne, the sand hill where the Cheyenne warriors dug in and to fight back. Now, Neil talks about bringing up the Gatling gun and opening fire, and that stopped the Indians for a short time from their entrenchments on that hill. So here's some of my observations. You've got Cheyenne warriors occupying this hill across the river from the military camp. But according to this map, the entrenchments are on the south side, facing this direction, not facing the military camp. Well, maybe that doesn't mean anything, but it's curious to me. They've got the Gatling guns being located here, south of the hill. Well, they're pointed at the hill, but also at the camp. And just a little ways, not too far off from Captain Bennett's camp. But if their Gatling gun fire is very, very accurate, then that's no big deal. However, you've got this squad or group of soldiers, and this group of soldiers, are they shooting at each other? So just some observations. Neil says we have the dead bodies of 6 Cheyenne men and 1 squaw, who was unavoidably killed when the prisoner escaped. Well, he didn't say this at the beginning of the report. He only talked about the one. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I find it a little curious. The first charge on foot, I sent in the last men I had under Lieutenant Turner with orders to continue mounted and pursue if the charge was successful. And that Lieutenant Turner was that it was a very gallant manner. So he likes this guy. He likes this Lieutenant Turner. These are the officers whose names are in that report, and this name of Turner is going to show up again. Now, I recently came across a brand new, or a document that's brand new to me, and it gives quite a different version of this, of what happened during this fight. And it's titled Sand Hill Fight, and it appears to be on page 116 of something between the U.S. troops and Cheyenne Indians. And it says, this difficulty which occurred. Well, that's kind of interesting. Whoever wrote this is not calling it a battle or a fight. Well, that's okay, but again, it's curious to me. And then look at this. In the very beginning of this, in the first paragraph, was the result of the inefficiency of General Neal, military commandant. Well, it's Colonel Neal, not General, and it's misspelled, Neal. But again, that's not necessarily a big deal. Whoever is writing this, or they're transcribed what some person, their boss or whoever, is telling them, so what? And but the term military commandant, I find that interesting. Who refers to somebody as rather than the commanding officer, he's the military commandant. So, and again, I have Xerox copies of this entire document available, and if we don't have enough, we can make more at the Xerox machine. And I can also put them on a thumb drive for you. If you don't have a thumb drive, I've got a couple of extras I'll sell you for a couple of bucks, or I can email it to you, as soon as we get done here. But you can look at both of these and research them yourself and see what you think.
Can I make a point?
Yes?
It's very conceivable when he's called general, and that is his brevet rank in the Civil War, based on something that he had to earn for promotion.
I did not know that.
They went with their brevet rank, but their duty position was probably his lieutenant colonel.
Well, see, that gives even more. Is this being written by a military person who would do that?
And it could be because sometimes they would go ahead and put it that way because that's what a lot of them line as.
Well,
And they don't mention the brevet rank, they just limit general.
I did not know that. Thank you, Sam.
And it didn't necessarily have to be brevet. It would be that they would promote it in a U.S. Volunteers or whatever, in a full general.
Yeah.
But at the end of the Civil War, reverted, and so even Custer out here is referred to as General Custer because
Yes.
of the general
Okay.
Civil War.
Yeah, I should
The
have.
misspelling name is not unusual, but in this it tells me it's a civilian. It may be a newspaper reporter or somebody that's attached to.
I'm kind of suspecting it's the Indian agent, but we'll see some even more curious things here. Oh, and as to the source of this, and if I hadn't already pointed it out enough, this is not dated and it's not signed. This is written on the side right here, and I think this is notes from the man that found this, or the person that found this in an archives. And he wrote this, I think, in the margins, 1875 agency report. And those records are supposed to be at the Oklahoma Historical Society, and so my intention is to go there and try to find this and see what collection it's. It may be in the group of papers from a certain person, maybe. So, this is the story that this person tells. The guards fired on him, killing 2 women. 2. And wounding a 3rd who will probably die. One Indian shot a soldier with an arrow, and the guards also killed him and the prisoner who was running. So this is a major difference now. Who has written this is saying that they killed 2 women and maybe 3. And that doesn't show up. 2 women being killed doesn't show up anywhere in the other report or in the books, the stories that have been written that I have found. And one of the soldiers was shot, but it was with an arrow. So this account is not saying that the Cheyennes who started engaging the soldiers, well, Neal's report says that they were being fired at with rifles. So this appears to be a little bit different than that. Now, as to the location on this hill, well, according to this writer, that location, they could not have been less dangerous to the forces, the military, or the agency. So the guy writing this letter, or this document, he's saying that their position on this hill was not dangerous or not a big threat to either the Indian agency or the military. And according to this, the Indians going to this hill and arming themselves was for the purpose of being the rear guard to cover the escape of the rest of the people or the non-combatants from the Cheyenne camp. Well, I have not come across this before, that this was a rear guard and a distraction. But according to this writer, it was intended to direct General Neal's attention toward them, and they did do that thing. And so as a distraction to Neal, this guy says they were very successful at that. Well, and guess what? The men, women, and children, non-combatants, did get away. So they were successful. It requires some stretch of imagination to believe that military men would do business in that way. Well, this is a pretty strong statement, isn't it? One Indian was killed at the sand hill, and after he had been dead all night, Captain Turner, with heroism and majesty, in the presence of his troops, scalped the dead Indian from the previous slide and exhibited the scalp as a trophy. Well, we know there was a Lieutenant Turner there from Neal's report. But this, of course, here he's being described as captain. But up to this point, this document has been very critical. But now he's saying, with heroism, carrying the majesty of the government. I don't know what to make of that. Is it sarcasm? I think it's sarcasm, but isn't it curious? This just gets better and better. On the morning of the next day, scalped this cold and stark Indian and carried the scalp and exhibited it as a trophy. Never even remotely heard of any scalping by the military of an Indian at this event. And then it goes on to say, Turner stole the scalp that belonged to the man who killed the Indian. And that this victim had 5 balls struck him in a small space. So he was shot 5 times, I guess, with the Gatling gun. Well, according to that map, the Gatling guns were south of the Sand Hill, so he must have been killed, I guess, in that area, unless that those bullets went past the Sand Hill and into the Cheyenne camp. So this guy may have been a non-combatant, right? It's possible. Now, take a look at this. Up to now, we've got very good penmanship, right? Very good, educated person. But look at this. This is right at the end, and you go from this to this. And it's very difficult, actually, to read. Something, 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 commissioner of something, 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 but he says...
I most respectfully ask that the Honorable Commissioner of whatever...
Yeah.
...to report this through the President by order of...
Okay.
Necessary...
Yeah, to prohibit the practice of scalping of Indians by United States troops and or officers. So a person, and I'm just speculating, but it kind of looks like a clerk or somebody wrote this or transcribed this up to this point, and then maybe a superior came along and added this at the end, this recommendation of what to do about it. So in summary, a significant event took place at the end of the Red River Wars, which were traumatic, significant. And an event took place afterwards at the Battle of Sappa Creek and the traumatic incarceration of those prisoners of war in Florida. And men, women, and children who were at the end of the Red River War or were forced back onto their reservation is in a prison camp. The war criminals were identified, and as they were being placed in leg irons, and one of them broke free, which was Black Horse, and then soldiers began firing. Well, that's there's not a lot of disagreement over this. But when you compare the two reports to each other, the Neal report, the Neal report says that 2 hostile men were shot and killed. And of course, this unsigned document says two men and 2 women were shot and killed. And he's describing this as after they have shot 2 hostiles, and then there was return fire from the hostile camp. And this other document says that they began firing from the sand hill, not, of course, again, hostile camp to this person means the sand hill, but it didn't say sand hill. So there appears to be a difference there. Firing from the sand hill, and they specifically describe it as a strong position, but yet this other guy says it was not a strong position. And he says there was a total of 6 men and 1 woman shot and killed. Well, this other report talks about 1 man killed and then scalped by Turner. And Neal is saying Lieutenant Turner was very gallant, but this writer is saying Captain Turner acted with heroism and majesty. So what do we make of all of this? Well, of course, to me, the big thing is this new document that tells a totally different story. And so up till now, we've had Neal's report in other written accounts that in books that are basically based on Neal's report. But now, out of nowhere, or not out of nowhere, somebody found it in archives, and I ended up with a copy of it. So it was new to me, anyway. And it's significant, again, because it brings together these events that happened before, during, and after, and it brings together these significant people, these non-combatants who were there and were being shot at. And then over here, the prisoners of war that had already been chained or were being held who get sent to Florida, and their names become very well known, such as Okerhater and his ledger art. And then the Sapa Creek. And I've always been interested in events, any events surrounding Sapa Creek. And since I've been here the last couple of days, I've learned a lot of new information. And there's been 2 or 3 books written just about Sapa Creek. But like a lot of books that I've seen, they mention the Sand Hill fight, but it might take up a paragraph or 2. But the book is about Sapa Creek, or the book is about Florida and Fort Marion. And there's just not a lot of details about the Sand Hill fight until today. So I have these guys have printed some of these out for me, and I've got them at the table back there. And if there's not enough, we'll go make some more copies. I can also email it to you, or if you have a thumb drive, I'll fire up the laptop and put them on your thumb drive for you. And if you don't have a thumb drive, I've got some extras. And that's my contact information. And here's the big deal right here. This wonderful book. But I can't sing a song about it like the previous speaker. But maybe she can help coach me on that. Can you coach me on that a little bit? And okay, all right. And I have some of these books. I have plenty of books over here if somebody would like to buy one. And the museum has some. And so if you have cash or check, you can buy one from me. But if you need to use a card, the museum has a card reader, and you can buy one from them. And that's it. Any questions?
Yes. Tell us how you became interested in White Thunder and who White Thunder was.
I worked at the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, and I was an agent for 25 years. And one of the men that I worked with is Cheyenne Arapaho. And we've become best buddies for about 30 years. And he began telling me stories about Cheyennes in general. And his great-grandfather, Edmund Guerrier, who had married Julia Bent, William Bent, and Al Woman's daughter, Julia Bent from Bent's Fort. And on one particular time, we were on a business trip from Oklahoma to Denver. And we're driving across the Oklahoma Panhandle and crossed right over into Colorado. And the highway there, you know, on the east side, it's like around here. It's just flat prairie. But on the west side of the highway, you kind of got the beginnings of some rocky ground and mesas and eventually the Rocky Mountains. And that scenery just captivated me. And Harvey's telling me about the Bents and about how Edmund Guerrier had been a scout for Custer at one time. So I'm getting pretty, I'm paying attention to this. I'm really getting into this. And we get near La Junta, and Harvey says, well, the historic site's right over here. We'll stop for a couple of minutes. So we stop at Bent's Fort and walk around and look around. And we're standing there by the door to the gift shop and bookstore, and a park ranger is standing right there, and, we're just kind of chatting. And so I tell the ranger, I said, hey, this is Harvey Pratt. He's a Bent. He's of the Bent family. And this ranger, which I did not know at the time, was also their historian. And so he kind of pauses, and he says, oh, Harvey, well, you're the son of Anne and the grandson of Nellie, and he just starts naming off everybody. And I was shocked. I just thought, oh, cow, there's something going on here. This park employee knows so I was hooked. I was really hooked. And off and on for years and years, I was researching and just out of curiosity. And then it reached the point where, I need to really write a book about this. And then it just kept rolling on. And so a year ago, I decided I've got to do something about this. And I just plowed in and did the whole thing myself and self-published it on Amazon. And so I've got other stuff, other similar things, and keep finding out everywhere I go. People want to talk about, in general, they want to talk about Old West history, and a lot. And I've met a lot of Cheyennes, and they want to know. They want to talk about this history. I have been writing for the Cheyenne Arapaho Tribal Tribune newspaper, and that's been well received. And if I haven't, I know I've told almost all of you, but if I haven't told you, I'm a finalist for Oklahoma Book of the Year. So I'm kind of, I'm a little pepped up, I guess. So Okay, that was real good, Deb. Throw me another one.
Tell them real quickly, we've got about 5 minutes. Who was White Thunder?
Well, and you said that, and I totally ignored it, didn't I? White Thunder was the keeper of the sacred medicine arrows in the 1830s. And that was the most important person in the tribe other than a chief. He was not a chief, he was their holy man. And he was the keeper of the sacred medicine arrows, which is their most important, well, that and the sacred medicine hat are their two most important objects. And they still have medicine arrows today. And they have a keeper, and they protect those 4 arrows and keep watch on them 24/7, even today. But White Thunder met William Bent, and William Bent ended up marrying his daughter, Owl Woman. And their children included Julia and her brothers George and Charlie and Robert. And so it goes down through the ages, up through today. And so the subtitle of the book is Legacy of a Cheyenne Family, 1830 to 2022. And this descendant, Harvey Pratt, is an artist. And in Washington, they decided they were going to build a national Native American Veterans Memorial. And they asked people to submit their idea for a memorial. And there was about 250 entries, and they chose Harvey's. And and it's built all with donations, no public funds. And they built that memorial, and it's on the mall next to the Smithsonian and the National Native Americans Museum. And they actually completed it, and it was opened in 2020. But because of COVID, they really didn't have a grand opening until this past November. And 30,000 people were there. And so that's kind of where my book wraps up. And I would like to say this. I like to tell people this. A couple of years ago, a mountain in Colorado named Squaw Mountain, they changed the name of it because it was a very derogatory term. And the name they chose was Owl Woman's Cheyenne name, which I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce for you, but it's in the book. And so I make the comment that, and see, Owl Woman would have been born in the 1820s. And so I make the comment that 200 years later, following her birth, Owl Woman still has influence today. And so that's it. Any questions? Come on, Deb. Are you out of questions?
Anybody have a question? If not, what we'll do is we will wrap up, and then during our, you got a question, Sam?
I just want to make a statement. You've proved it. Research is never over for the historian.
Yeah, very good.
You're on track.
Very good point. Very good point. So we're going to have our panel discussion in about 15 minutes or something. We've got a few things we want to do, but then Dee will be around to sign books and to visit with y'all. Ken has some books. I think, Ken, you're going to leave, right? Ken's going to have to leave pretty soon, so when we break, you can visit with Ken before he goes. Marla has her books out there. We've got the tickets. And our evening speaker, Brenda Culbertson, has some stuff out there as well. So, take it away, Jane.
Okay. Dee, on behalf of the Fort Wallace Memorial Association, you okay? Sorry. I'd like to present you with our 2023 coin, and thank you for your research and what you bring to the field. And thank you for coming to Fort Wallace.
Thank you. And Dee, the Dennis K. Clark Lecture Series. And I look forward to more conversations and discussions as we go through. I'd like to help you figure that piece out. 'Cause I bet there's the funny signature is the Indian agent, and the other one's a contractor or somebody who's there who wrote the report to get it forward. But I look forward to working with you, maybe deciphering, and to continue to inform us on Kansas heritage.
Okay, all right.